Call the City of Marine City Commission meeting to order, Marine City Fire Hall, Thursday, January 18th, 7 o'clock. Can we start with a prayer from Father Rooney, please?
We begin to pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening, ever mindful of our own weaknesses, but acknowledging the strength that we carry because of your presence here among us. Make us ever mindful that the decisions we make here this evening are for the care of your people. We ask you to bless these who have been elected to this office. Grant them wisdom and rid their hearts of all bitterness or resentment, that the decisions they reach may be for the good of our city. We ask this in the name of the one who came to bring us peace and fulfillment, who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Father. And the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ganabon.
Here.
Commissioner Avery.
Here.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Here.
Commissioner Clausen.
Here.
Commissioner Lepley is absent this evening. Commissioner Simpson.
Here.
Commissioner Turner.
Here.
City Manager Levin. Here.
Communications. I need a motion to receive and file the TIFA meeting minutes, October 17th, the Zoning Board of Appeals minutes, December 6th, the Planning Commission meeting, December 11th, departmental activity reports, the Marine City Area Fire Authority run reports, December, and their annual.
Make a motion to receive and file the communications.
Second that motion.
Any questions or concerns on?
I just have a question
Yeah.
for the city manager. Is this going to be the new format, receiving the run reports in the communication segment?
Yes, because it's not something you take action on.
Okay, just want to make sure that that's for consistency moving forward.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
I did talk to the clerk already, and on some of the stuff that TIF is doing, and when they make their motions, it just says that it's for the outside grant, but we don't know. To me, reading this, I can't tell what they're doing. So,
Okay.
she said she'd get more into it.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse
Oh,
Commissioner
I'm
Humphrey
sorry.
tonight.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Jim. Public comment. Anyone in attendance is welcome to address the city commission. Please state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Hearing none, moving on to approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda, the new agenda as presented.
Support?
Motion and support. Any questions or concerns on the agenda?
Clarification about the new agenda, all that was changed was the resolution number.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Move on, I need a motion to approve the city commission regular meeting December 21st.
I move to approve our regular meeting minutes, December 21st, 2017, as presented.
I will second that motion, please.
Any corrections or deletions on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consent agenda. Need a motion to approve a business license for Ball Cap Cafe.
So moved.
Support?
All in favor? Oh, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Avery.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Mayor Ganabon.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now we're moving on to the Unfinished business, newspaper blight update.
We contacted the Times Herald. They are the ones that are the publishers and distributors of the Blue Water Shopper. They have just regular newspaper delivery people that deliver these papers and blanket all the addresses in the community. So we have a couple of options. First of all, they do have a number that you can call to opt out. So any resident that doesn't want it can call the number to opt out. That number is 810-989-6204. And we do also have that on the homepage on our website as well. The only other option would be for us as a community to blanket opt out. And that would be, I think, the decision of the board, should you choose to do that. I think probably at this point in time, if we try and let residents opt out that do not want to get this, that might be a good first step. And if we find that that's not effective, we can revisit it.
But one of the issues is either a home that nobody's at, or they can't opt out, unless you opt out for them, you know, call it. So, Lisa?
I saw a whole conversation though of people trying to opt out and weren't very successful with the company. So even though there's a number and even though they try to call, they weren't met with real nice customer service from the paper. And then I've seen, it's not the same people that deliver the papers though.
No.
And when I've seen them come up, the one day I was standing there, they drove right up in front of my house, didn't even get out here, dropped it right at the curb. So the other people that they used to have, it was a group of disabled people that used to do it. They used to put them right on the porches. They didn't want to deal with them apparently anymore because those people were very good about putting it where it was supposed to be. And so now they've hired a different contractor, and that contractor just opens the window and dumps right outside at the curb, which isn't really what they're supposed to be doing with it. So.
Yeah, they don't provide any type of boxes or anything for residents to put on their mail
They're supposed
post.
to put them up on the porches or on the, whatever they can to get it closest to the door. And that's the problem. They don't. They stick it right out. Some of them are just dropped right in their driveways, out at the curb.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Mr. Avery?
I will say that now they're dropped in the driveway and buried in snow, and the snow blower does not like eating them.
Have we addressed that under the blight ordinance?
Yeah, it's what I
And,
suggest.
and cite the company, not the ones delivering.
Is the newspaper one of substance or advertising?
Very much advertising.
Blue Water Shopper.
I have plenty of them,
And that's in
Through
good
the
condition
snowblower or
compared to
not?
how I find mine.
yeah. Well, I put this in my truck right away, but yes.
I spent a half an
Not
hour
much snow.
tearing one out of my new snow blower
A lot of people have.
because it
And-
wedged in there.
Yeah.
One person blew up their snowblower because.
Well, because you don't see them oftentimes.
You're welcome. I've
Yeah,
got
they
another
didn't
one
see
in
it.
the
It
truck.
just sucked.
Right. Well, and
covered
we've
with
gotten
snow.
so much snow this season that they deliver it so early in the morning that oftentimes it's blanketed by the time.
It's yours, it's a gift.
We have newspaper boxes and mailboxes.
Some of them are old.
You're not allowed to
articles
put
that
anything
they
in a
can't-
mailbox.
No.
That's
but
right.
If you got a newspaper
Might put one
box,
in there.
Yeah.
not on the ground.
Does that have bearing on it?
Yeah, I think you have to, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we want to make sure that we're not blanket rejecting substantive press. We have to be mindful of
You
that.
have to look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could go to the individual opt-out, and why don't we reserve the issue of a blanket prohibition until we make sure we're not unfairly
Maybe, one thing.
denying the delivery of a certain news source.
Maybe we could start a whole list and then submit them a whole list of people that want to opt out. I don't know if that would be a way to go because, like I said, people have tried calling and
Elaine, did you have a discussion with them, someone who handles circulation or what have you? So they're aware that as a city, we're unhappy with it, not just one or two residents, but that it's quite the problem, so maybe they can address it on an administrative level, perhaps?
Kathy in our office spoke with them, so
Okay.
maybe I need to escalate it and talk to them myself.
Because the council's considering pulling their permit to operate.
And I know that there are a lot of people that actually like and depend upon getting it. So that's
Would
something
they,
to consider as well.
would they be required to have a peddler's license under our current ordinances or policies?
I wouldn't think so.
Because they're not actively
And
selling?
talking about blight, it wouldn't, that's not really them that we would go after for blight. It's more so the homeowner that wouldn't be cleaning up after them.
Right.
Them, potentially, I don't know about littering. It's not really littering because they're delivering
Still could be literally
something.
dropped out of a car.
Is there, there's no charge for the service?
Correct.
But if they're dropping in the right of way,
Yeah.
It's dropped in the road, it's dropped
Yeah.
in sidewalks.
Seems to me if we can give it an administrative sort of, if you talk to someone that has some substance there that can really say, hey, it's been a problem, and then between that and the individual opt-out, maybe we can see what kind of progress we can make there, and then if it tends to not get resolved, we can revisit it.
you thinking that's a problem with freedom of speech?
Freedom of press.
Let me just take a look at it.
And I don't think we're the only community, because I've seen the chatter online from other communities, same thing.
Oh, it's an issue
Yeah.
on many fronts.
It's an issue every week.
All right, moving on then. We're going to go to the downtown parking study. Implementation assistance proposal.
So as you'll recall, not too long ago, we received the parking study from Wade Trim, and these are some of the things that are easily picked out of that study as things that we could move forward with and work with Wade Trim on doing for parking issues. Not necessarily in this order, not necessarily an all or none option. And some of them I think that we could also pare down. For example, task 1, $1,000 for public awareness materials, maps and brochures. I don't necessarily know that it would be important for us to get 150 copies and 3 large-scale laminated ones. So I think there's a lot of room for change here. This really, I think, is a starting point for consideration. I think possibly one of the more involved tasks that they have outlined in this memo is the North Water Street parking concept design. That's something that we have had before City Commission in the past. I know Mike had put together a plan for redoing some of the parking up by the beach and pavilion. This is something that they can study and bring back the plan to us. Or as an alternative, we can revisit the plan that Mike had put together. Any of these other things, the maps, once they develop a parking map, they obviously would have that on file, so any amendments in the future would not be as costly. But the proposal that stands before you, just willing to hear any conversation and anything that you might want to do moving forward with any of that.
It's the pleasure of the board.
I guess I'll start. I guess even on for what we paid for the parking study, I wasn't real impressed with the fact that it wasn't anything that we didn't already know. Some of this I think is a little bit pricey since we did a lot of this stuff before on our own. $4,000 to do all this seems a little bit high, when most of the stuff even preparing this isn't that hard to do. Picking out a sign and marking them, I don't think that's too difficult that we couldn't do. And yes, we already had the one Mike did, and I know even Mr. Blanchard gave us some insight on that whole section also. So I think it's a little pricey for what we're getting.
Anyone else? Dave?
Yeah, I think it's worth revisiting some of the efforts that people have already put in on this. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, we just really didn't pursue some of those options. We like we do on a lot of things, we discussed them, and then they sort of went by the wayside before we found a way to implement them or research them further for implementation. So I'd agree, this seems a bit pricey for things that aren't very substantial in my mind. So I think, we have these, we could certainly go back to them.
Mhm.
But since there's already been a good deal of effort involved in some of this, I'd like for us to maybe dig those back out and at a meeting soon, take a look at those. That way we can have something in place, a plan in place before the nice
Spring.
weather gets here. That would be my thought.
Yes, Mr. Avery.
I agree exactly with the sentiments expressed. As a matter of fact, I drive by there almost every day and I almost don't see any parking problems down there, but at the beach. I think maybe we should suggest to them that this is nice, but it isn't a high enough priority right now with our budget issues to go into it. And then we exercise the work that we have already done.
Yeah, we already have signage downtown about parking, so the street cleaner and everybody can get down through there until I believe it's from midnight to 6 in the morning, and it's posted, but you find the people that have apartments down there are parking on the street. So I believe that we're having problems getting rid of the snow and stuff because they're there when we can get down there and we have the street closed by ordinance.
A lot of this would be creating a unique wayfinding sign, not necessarily just the signs that we have, but something unique that a new person in town could see.
Yeah.
I'd also like to see us, as we're doing this, revisit a lot of the signage downtown. If we can consolidate or centrally locate some of them so there's not a gazillion signs where it's a bit blinding when you're going by, you're trying to pay attention to traffic and pedestrians. If you keep having to look, if we can consolidate some of them, present them in a different fashion, I think this would be the time to do that. There might be some economies of scale there to take advantage of if we're gonna put up a new post or relocate things, so that way we're not doing it piecemeal, next year, 8 months down the road, something like that. I think that's a good time to be looking at that as well. It's more than just parking, it's, signage in general.
That might be a good project for Planning Commission to consider taking on, is kind of signage, almost like a sub-master plan. Take a look at the signage we have downtown, routing to downtown, and come up with ideas at Planning
Send
Commission.
it to us, be happy to look at it.
So I'm not getting a motion to approve it, so I think we're just gonna move on. Moving on to new business, we have ordinance 2018-001, the motor vehicle snow removal introduction and first reading. I need to get a motion to introduce this.
I move to introduce ordinance 2018-001 regarding motor vehicle and snow removal.
I will second that motion.
Any questions or concerns on it?
I'm going to give you a little bit of a summary of some of the things here that have changed. First of all, in section A, there's a portion that was relocated from a different section in the same zoning ordinance. The last sentence here, further such disabled motor vehicle shall not be permitted to remain outside the building. That was actually section C, so that's been moved to be on the same paragraph as section A. Section C, however, the new one, is actually a new section. Nothing contained herein shall be construed as authorizing any home business relating to servicing or repairing motor vehicles owned by other persons. That seems to be an ongoing complaint that we have had in our office, is people that have a home auto repair business, in essence, in their yard, and you're constantly hearing the tools for working on cars every single day, and that was language that was put in there to help prevent that, not the home hobbyist or a person that's fixing their own car at home. On to section 70.057, parking restrictions. B1 is new criteria. This was something that I worked with the planning consultant to try and find some language that could address the issues that were expressed when we had this originally at City Commission. If you'll recall, one of the residents had an issue that she's disabled, does not have a driver's license. However, she does have a vehicle, and people that take her to appointments and things use her car. So this is some language that we came up with to be able to address that kind of situation and anything else. I don't know that it's a fail-safe. This is some language. It's something that I think maybe merits a little bit of discussion. The second, section B2 is also new language. This is just kind of a fail-safe where if for some reason there are issues that, unbeknownst to us, unplanned through this language, we come across something that is an issue of health, safety, welfare, gives us an opportunity to not be able to issue the permit. I can't really think of a scenario, but in essence, it's kind of a fail-safe for situations that are not planned or are not foreseen. Let's see. Section 70.058. There were just a couple minor word changes. The third line, instead of the word instead of the word removed, it used to be pushed. So that just cleaned up the language a little bit. And then the very last line, it used to say, go to a nearby phone, garage, gas station, so we got rid of phone. So just minor updating for some things there. That's all that I have for this ordinance.
All right, first thing I would ask is when we get these ordinances updated, we get them where you get rid of what it is.
I have a
what
red
you've
line
added.
and thing. It kind of
Because-
got lost between the planner and the attorney,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Because, you know, I had to start pulling the old one, trying to compare the old one and the new one. And even this is one from another community where this is when it's done. This is, they posted online like this, so you can see the difference. So I'd ask future if we could
Yes.
please get that. All right, the only other things I saw in here is in 70.039, section A, it says, that the motor vehicle is not located in any open space required by the zoning laws, and provided that that motor vehicle is owned by the owner of the lot at issue. We've got a lot of rentals now since 2008, so what happens there? It says, this is another one where it says the owner of the car has to be the owner of the lot, which isn't gonna match.
Well, that was actually some of my thoughts. What I was trying to do here was make sure we were linking the vehicle to the ownership of the facility. We can deal with the rental issue, but the point is that, you know, it was left kind of loose before where you just
Yeah.
have a vehicle and they weren't married.
Yeah.
So we were trying to tie them together to link the vehicle at issue to the ownership of the home at issue.
Yeah, I just, if you could tweak that.
Yeah, and
then-
that goes hand in hand with down on C, you know, where we're tying that ownership together so that it doesn't become a commercial enterprise.
Oh, yes.
Wouldn't the term resident
Exactly.
be more appropriate for that one spot, just because?
Instead of owner.
Mhm.
Yeah, someone who resides that.
What about if we put the current lawful resident?
Yep.
Yes, anything to,
Is that all right?
Yes.
that's fine. Okay, that's one.
Okay, that's good. That's a good thought.
Section 70.57, you got section A there, and I know this was done in one of the other sections, that we had the dates of the December 1st to March 31st for the, it just says during the winter months.
The dates and the definition.
Yeah,
I
because it's
raised
in
the
another
same
ordinance, yeah.
Yeah, that is a defined term,
Yeah.
winter months.
What's it defined as?
It's defined as December 1st to March 31st. It's the section right before this one. So it's 70.056, I believe.
I don't think we have the,
It's not changing,
I saw
that's
it in
why.
one of them.
It's not changing.
Okay.
It's in a part of the ordinance that's not changing, it's
All
not
right.
before you.
Okay. All right, long as it's there. I just saw
Yeah.
that. Other than that, I guess I didn't see anything else.
Mr. Avery.
Just a general question, has nothing to do with any problems with this ordinance, but have we issued a lot of special permits to park in the street for snow time? Or, just parking in the street during this period?
They keep increasing every year.
Okay, well,
I
a lot
think
is not
we're
a
up
good.
to around
good-
200.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a,
And that then voids the exemption from the 2 to 6, so they can park all night. Because we do have a lot of snowplows weaving around, and we get real good service on our snow plowing here, so it isn't just plowed once when it snows. They come by and then they clean up some of the areas again, and it's difficult. So I guess it comes down to an enforcement of this ordinance for the safety of the snowplow people and the vehicles.
I've had one instance, I know, where there is a woman, she has no driveway, and she has a parking permit for the snow. And she was trying to be proactive, older lady, and she moved her car off onto the front lawn in the winter only, so that they could plow, and she got a letter. And so then she panicked, because she thought she was gonna get a ticket. I don't know if, when we have snow, if that's a consideration that during that period,
And-
we may waive that for certain people so that they, if they really want to get their cars off the street, I don't know.
And
That's
that-
just a thought that somebody,
That would be something that is in violation of our ordinances, parking in the
Yes.
front yard. If we change the ordinance and amend it, that would be something up to city commission. There are some considerations to think about if you do allow this, even in winter, allow parking in the front yard. Some of the reasons why you don't typically have parking in the front yard is because you have some infrastructure in that front yard that you don't want to crush or collapse. You could potentially cause some ponding or water runoff from your property to neighbors, which could lead to erosion. You have safety issues for accessibility to the front door, for ambulances, for gurneys and things like that. So there are issues to consider, but if that is something that commission wants to do, I would recommend changing the ordinance to allow for parking in the front yard during the winter months as an alternative.
Would that be down on the 2 ordinances down there? Or would you
Talking
put it in-
about
Driveways,
the
front
next
yard?
Or would you
couple
put
agenda
that in
items
with
down.
the snow? Yeah.
well, you could add it there, yeah.
that was just an idea. Or we just do kind of a moratorium on making, you know, because like I said, that poor woman, she got scared, thought she was going to get a ticket, where she was just trying to be proactive to get
Yeah,
the
and
snow.
I talked to Susan about that, and until we get some clarification, the direction of what city commission wants to do, she's kind of sidestepping that at the moment.
I'm glad we're revisiting this. It's good. Snow removal, section 2. What is the ultimate goal of this ordinance? In my mind, it's to get vehicles off the street so they can plow, right? And ultimately, that's the goal. That's what the city intends.
It makes it very difficult to plow the snow with cars in the way,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I
So that's
ultimately,
the goal, right?
in an ideal world, everybody would be off the
Okay,
street all
okay.
winter long.
That being the starting point.
But I know that it's not a realistic thing because we
So
do
what-
have people without driveways.
So that leads to a few questions then.
Mm-hmm.
So between the hours of 2 and 6, what's the benefit of that then?
Because that generally is when most people are off the street and DPW can come in and shovel before people have to start going to work.
That 4-hour period?
Yep.
What if it starts snowing at 6 o'clock? you've defeated the purpose, right? I guess I'm questioning the restriction of overnight, because that ties into a bunch of other things that you have to get permits, you have to restrict the number of vehicles. Only during those time periods you have to restrict that, right?
Well, and it also assumes that everybody works from 8 to 5.
I know, that's what I'm saying, this needs some work.
That,
Example, I
Yeah.
left the house at 6 this morning for work. There were 9 vehicles on my street. Of course, it's dark and they're covered with snow or salt, so I can't see the windows. I don't know if they had stickers on their windows or not. But if you have a guest stay overnight, you say you're allowed 1 guest. Do they get a sticker if they come for the weekend? How do you enforce this? How do we enforce this?
you can get 1 guest sticker.
Okay.
Um,
You're going to put it on that vehicle?
You can, yeah.
What if they
Okay.
show up unannounced though and you didn't know they were coming?
Exactly.
And you guys are closed.
You throw them out.
Yeah.
Well, and who do we expect to enforce this? Police?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, because they have the list, so they don't
Ultimately,
actually.
they're not going to go every night and check vehicles. Like I drove up at 6 in the morning and there were 9 vehicles. Odds are pretty good that they didn't all have stickers, but I couldn't tell you. So what's going to happen is if the vehicle's there and it gets plowed in, they might, and it's sitting there plowed in for a few days, they might enforce it at that point, right?
That's usually how it's done.
Okay. If they don't remove the vehicle, what happens? They get ticketed, they get towed?
Ticketed.
Does it say that here someplace in the ordinance that didn't change? Is it in there?
I am not sure.
Okay. And I guess the whole snow emergency thing, if a snow emergency is declared by, what, National Weather Service?
No, no.
Who declares it?
Snow emergencies are a totally different thing.
Then everybody has, even if you have permit, you have to get off the street.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so how is it communicated? Who declares it? How does the word get out to everybody that we're under a snow emergency?
We have a process for that. It's an administrative process. So we would put word out on Facebook, on our website, I'm trying to think, the radio stations, TV,
Okay.
our DPW sign. I can't remember everything. Winds, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so pretty much every means possible for a snow emergency because, yeah, that is a much more serious and different scenario.
Okay. And if they had to go to this permit situation to start with because they didn't have parking space and emergencies declared, where are they supposed to put those vehicles?
And that's, I think, part of the problem and why this
They
was
can't put
created,
them in
that
the
it gives a
front
middle
yard.
ground. I know. Not
Are they supposed-
currently.
They're gonna, the good citizen wants to adhere. How are they gonna adhere? And
Either,
not get plowed in or not get ticketed or towed?
I know.
Or end up on private property somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
which causes other problems.
And I know a lot of other communities have that regulation that you
Right.
have to get off the street. And they fortunately have, I think, a lot more public
Okay.
parking lots where people can
And I'm
take
assuming
vehicles.
someone's been talking with Mike Goodrich and asking, how's this plan been working? Are the streets cleared?
He would
Is
love
it
every
working
car
out?
off the street.
I'm sure he would. but how has it been working? If it had, assuming it's been enforced, how has it been working over the past 10 years?
So like I said earlier, it seems like we've been having more and more people getting applications, so there's been more cars, so it's been more challenging for him to have to get around cars whenever he plows.
All right.
Long and short, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
If you talk to them, it's getting worse.
But if we adjust these ordinances, we're expected to enforce them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We had towed all the vehicles in it during a severe storm, and we moved them all into public parking at one time, and then billed them for the tow.
Where did you put them into public parking?
We had Mike pre-cleared lots in, over by the Ameritech building and in certain designated areas, and we towed and dropped them. And then waived a lot of tow bills from the city.
Because there was an issue with that. I
think they
were issued permits and there was no exclusion or something for those permits during a storm. I don't know the specific details that
Yeah.
predated me.
It's tough because any ordinance doesn't cover 100% of our circumstances, and that's a tough thing, especially in, historically, we know we have a lot of parking issues, alleyway, right of access issues too, that, comes into play to a certain extent there, and there's no really, unless someone wins a lot of lottery money and, gifts people new driveways and things, that's the only real way to eliminate 100% of that. So that's a tough part about any ordinances. It's not gonna work 100% of the time.
Mr. Avery.
Just as an aside, in the same sort of thing, in line with Commissioner Hendrick's comment about somebody trying to do good and moving the car off, my dog walking duties take me up Main Street, and of course, there is no street parking there. So it seems to have been pretty common over the years that I've walked by there that people park in the front yards along there as a regular matter. So I guess we either have to write it such that we can accept that, and there really isn't an alternative. For these houses don't even have driveways, some of them. They're small, narrow lots, and evidently the horses didn't need as much room. So we do have to be reasonable with enforcing, which means we have to write it in, because if we have laws that we don't enforce, then we haven't made much change, have we? To research this, I went to Boston during the storm. They didn't handle 18 inches of snow in the little streets very well either, so it is an issue.
It becomes much more of a hardship if, say, we were to go to a complete snow emergency only scenario, because then you have people, where do they put their cars if they generally don't have a driveway or space? And if all we did were snow emergencies, then we'd be doing it more often. Now, the only time that we would issue a snow emergency is if it became a really serious situation with a lot of snow falling fast that we needed to, in essence, truck out of town.
I'm not following you on that one. How would it be happening more often if we only do it on snow emergency? How many snow emergencies we get in a year?
Because you get in situations where we would have cars all over the road,
Yeah.
and then you would have snow starting to pile up, so you'd need to clear the roads
So you're
off
saying there's
so that
more-
you could
more
clear the
cars they
snow.
have to enforce.
I'm sorry, say that again.
If you drop the permit thing, you're saying there's more cars on the road that would have to be enforced in an emergency.
Yes,
Okay, that's what
You're starting with a higher number.
Right.
yeah.
How much of a relief valve would it be if people could park on their property, on their lawn, on their front?
To me, why couldn't you give them like a 24-hour,
Yeah.
they could go, if it's a snow emergency or something, they've got 24 hours to go there and then move it back
That
out.
should be part of the hardship here.
Yeah.
If you have no driveway and you can't get that car out of the street, where are you gonna put it?
Yeah,
And maybe you just put in the ordinance that it'd be at your own risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You may,
I would almost extend it to 48, because a lot of times during
fine.
snowstorms,
Yeah.
we go back the next day to do cleanup.
how many
Touch it up.
people would that help? Would it help a decent group
I
of people?
think it would help quite a few people,
Yeah.
yes. Because that woman isn't the only one. There was another young man that also, he did the same thing, put his car up and
Oh,
normally,
I can
Well, Mike would
come up
like
with
that, it
at
would get
least
more
5
cars
just in one
off
block.
the street, right?
but I mean, if you did it just for a
Yeah.
24 to 48 hour, and only in the winter, we don't need to worry about it in the summer, but
As
if
part
we,
of the emergency situation.
yeah,
Right.
we allowed it.
I would suggest also, consistent with our other change, at the bottom of 2C, where it says nothing contained herein shall be construed as authorizing a home business. At the end of it, it says repairing motor vehicles owned by other persons other than the current lawful resident. And that was a theme that we picked up on, that we wanted to make sure we were linking. Okay, that's great.
So what about the 24 to 48 hour thing?
You could work on that.
Yeah, I think that's
I think we
helpful.
need to add
The
it.
48 hours.
24 to 48 hours,
Dispensation or allow to park in the front yard.
If they don't have any if, you know.
That might have to go in the other ordinance as well,
Yeah.
Is that for a snow emergency,
For snow-
or is that in conjunction with parking permits? I'm a little confused.
during a snow emergency, I thought.
Then we would have to declare it.
Yeah, the idea you're giving them relief for is that if it's a family of 4 drivers or something and they have a very small driveway, where are they gonna put those cars, right?
So here's kind of the issue with
So
a
you
lot
allow
of.
them to park in the street except during an emergency.
Yeah, here's the issue with a lot of the people that are asking for permits, is that you have, say, a family with 3 cars, and you have 1-lane garage, or, I'm sorry, 1-lane driveway, and people don't want to have to play the shuffle game in the morning when
We
you have
have
to
a
go to
lot of
work or
those.
something like that. We
Yeah.
do. So people park out on the street and they want to get permits, and that is really what I think causes part of the problem, is that they have the ability to park in the driveway, but they just don't want to because they don't want to have to get out and shuffle the cars.
Now, in my neighborhood, I have several neighbors that have that issue. They all put them in the driveway and they all jockey them. I've never seen any of them ask
Isn't that
for.
part of the analysis of giving out the permit?
Yeah. it's
Right,
supposed to
is-
be.
can you
have to
physically fit?
Don't they have to demonstrate they
Yes.
don't?
I need,
We had 5 drivers growing up, and that's what we did every night, because we all
That's the
had
way it
college
is.
classes, work, different
Mhm.
schedules.
And
And
all
that-
my
yeah.
neighbors do it pretty religiously. They jockey them and keep them off the road.
But I agree, that's exactly it. It's the analysis of, you know, can you physically put them there, or is there not enough room?
Mr. Avery.
The 24 to 48 hour is very good for places that have driveways. But again, we were talking about some place where, for instance, Main Street. No driveways, no street parking, period. So people tend to use their front yard and the parkway as drive-in all year long. But we're certainly interested during the wintertime.
Yeah, we're only saying that they could do in their front yard for 24 to 40 hours because of the snow. Other than that, no.
Well, okay, then we have the situation where just drive down Main Street
Mm-hmm.
or up. You can see it both ways.
So in the front yard, 24 to 48 hours during a declared snow emergency or just because of snow? 2 different animals.
And is it the front yard, the easement, or either?
Technically, all winter long, you have at least 200 residents parked on the streets, right?
Yep.
24 hours, they could be. So they're gonna get snow plowed in until there's an emergency, then we somehow
Correct.
have to enforce it. So, that, and as you said, the number grows each year. Right. So Mike's ultimate goal, that's why I asked that question first, is to clear the streets, but that's not gonna happen, no matter
It's
what.
not feasible,
It's not feasible.
no.
All right, so Mike's gonna have to plow around vehicles, no matter
Yes.
what.
Yes.
All right,
But we can try to minimize that.
yeah. But in an emergency situation where you're piling up a foot of snow or something, then it changes the game, is what we're saying.
Right.
And you think in that scenario, they should be able to go on their front yard?
Well, I mean, if you don't have a driveway or no place, what are you gonna do?
Oh, I agree with that,
Mhm.
but is
You
it
can't
carrying?
move that car.
Right.
Is it just during a snow emergency
That's what
or
I'm getting
whenever
at.
we have a
Well, I
good
would
snow
say
event?
just during an emergency
Okay.
situation.
So just,
Since we've conceded to the fact that there's at least 200 residents parking on the street 24/7, there's nothing we can do about that.
but if we could offer a relief valve where we can get 50 more off
Right, and maybe less permits next year.
and less permits.
By allowing to do it for any snow event, even an undeclared one or.
So you're saying for any snow event?
In my opinion, because I'm used to plowing around cars. And if they're not there, it's a lot easier, safer, less chance to hit them.
And no one should be able to really take advantage of that and carry it over beyond, because it's
Right.
gotta be
Snow season,
related, gotta
yeah.
be related to the winter months.
Well, when it starts to thaw out, you're gonna have a car sinking in your front lawn if you leave it there too long.
Well, and I wonder if we have a snow emergency, you have 2 feet of snow, how are you necessarily gonna get it on that surface and then get it off?
They'll get it there during it.
That's why
And
I
if
said
it gets
at
buried in,
your
it
own
gets
risk.
buried in. I
Yeah.
mean, it's gonna get buried in if it's sitting in the
So
street.
that
Tow
you're-
truck companies might
you're-
like it.
But you're articulating that any time during the winter months.
Would
during
help alleviate some of
A
the,
snow, during what, in their own discretion, if there's a snow event, pull your car onto your lawn.
Allow them to.
So
allow them
when,
to.
when
For
we,
that
when we
certain period of
issue the
time.
snow emergency, we'll allow people for the next 48 hours, you may park on, is it your front yard and/or the
I would
front
do any
easement?
snow
No,
event.
he's saying
He's
not
saying
just the snow,
anytime
he's
we
saying
have a snow
anytime
event.
during the winter months.
So
that
do
we're
they
gonna
need a
have snow
permit to do
event.
that then?
No,
No.
you're just not, right?
We're providing
We're
to allow that.
providing a loophole,
timeframe.
a loophole in the.
We will have a
ordinance.
car in a lot of front yards,
Yep.
all winter.
But they only have 24 to 48 hours. They can only put it there and then they gotta get it out.
What's a
That's what
snow
we're
event?
saying.
Right, we don't have a definition of
We
a
could
snow
have a
event in our
2-inch snow
ordinance,
event.
right?
Well, that's what.
So we'd have to,
Mr. Avery.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask, I'm sure Mike has some schedule so that we don't send the whole crew out to plow a half inch. There must be some guidance.
Criteria.
2-inch, 3-inch.
And that's,
I know commercial, we
but how do you
do.
communicate that?
it gets difficult for him to try to define any terms because there's so many different types of snow. You know, you have rain first, ice, and then snow. They need to plow at certain times. I know Dave can speak to all of
So
the
you're-
possible scenarios that it's difficult to nail it down to just a definition.
snow and you have ice still needs to be dealt with too.
So you really could end up with a car in the front yard the whole winter, and the person just says, I thought it was gonna snow.
No, I think that, they're allowed to park in the street if they have a permit. We've recited to that fact. We're gonna have 200 residents parking in front of their houses. It's a given, right? So Mike's gonna have to maneuver. But if it's extreme conditions, snow emergency, get it off the street, well, I got no place to put it.
Put it in your front yard.
Put it in your front yard for the next 48 hours, but then you're gonna have to remove it.
Yeah, and that would be something that would be notified when we do a snow emergency.
Yeah,
So there wouldn't be any discretion there.
Well, here's the thing, why don't we try it?
yeah.
Try it and see how that goes and see if that helps any.
We may not even have a snow emergency this year, so.
We may not know.
But I like the idea of just a snow emergency instead of a snow event because it takes care of the flip side of that where someone just, like you indicated, parks on the front lawn, you know, the entire season, because that's always the flip side, right? There's more than
Well, it
one,
snowed. They
you
said it
know,
was gonna snow last night. so-
right. Or I saw a snowflake, I got scared, I'm having.
Snow emergencies for each season and see how it
Yes,
goes.
see how it goes.
And then, you know, a lot of the other things in the ordinance help address the issue from our office perspective about issuing permits and who is entitled to be able to have a permit. You know, the conditions about the number of drivers, the number of spots available at
If
the
they have a
property.
long driveway and they can put 3 cars in there, they should be putting, I mean, granted, it's no fun, but you know who's always usually gonna leave first, so the
Yeah.
night before, you know. What I was gonna ask you though is, when do you start the clock?
It would be when we issue the snow emergency.
Okay, all right.
You know,
And that's
you may,
usually
in the next
after-
48 hours,
Okay.
park in, I don't think we've nailed it down, is it the front yard and/or the front easement?
Either or, because some people,
Have fenced-in front yards?
no, they basically have the easement.
Well, one,
But you-
yeah, and some
Front
people,
yard.
yeah, there's just, I know from bike riding all summer, there's some, by the time you consider the width of even a tiny car,
Yeah.
you're on both the yard and the easement because that's all they've got.
That's all.
Now, what
Particularly
about
Main Street.
I'm
yeah.
thinking sidewalks.
sidewalks?
Yep.
They cannot block the sidewalks.
Everybody's doing it now.
Yeah,
I hate
We
to
can
tell ya.
designate one side of the street, no parking, then everybody would have to permit on one side.
Main Street's a
And then
a
if
prime
they-
example.
If they go down, they can take it across the street instead of piling it on the car and take it all to the one side.
But M29, right? That's Main Street. There, I
Isn't that
can,
the
5
county?
houses, yeah, but 5 houses right off the bat, that's a problem for, because I always have to go around them. I'm practically on M29 walking around or riding around them.
So then you could get in a
Broadway, cars park
situation,
on Broadway too.
you could get in a situation if you did it on one side only, that you would have neighbors parking in your front yard.
It would be who got there first.
Who ruined my
What
yard?
was the question, did we resolve sidewalk? Because we,
No, what's it?
No.
What
We
did
kinda
we resolve
switched.
with?
That's an
Switch.
all-year-round issue, tell you the truth.
What
blocking
did we
the
resolve
sidewalk.
with that one that we had that came in, the handicapped person with no,
Yeah, that was the language that we put in here,
But
so.
it says that, it still says, she was asking about a permanent permit because she is there all the time, she's the handicapped person.
She has a permit, she's
Yeah, but it says that
legally
she
allowed to
has
get
to
a
renew it
permit,
every
but
year.
we still have fees that have to be paid every year. There's still work that has to be done. We have a spreadsheet that we have to put together. We have to provide that to the police
But you
department.
don't know
The
that
police
that house
department has to
that has no
enforce.
driveway? How many houses do we have? That
I'm not-
We have handicapped
She's
people there.
She's indicating, though, that the process of issuing the annual permit, because there's a different sticker each year, has some administrative and distribution cost to it as a
But
city,
if
and
you
that's
was
what it's
just
covering.
once for a handicapped person without a driveway,
She has, in essence, permanent rights to get it because there is no ability for the driveway, but she still has to pay the annual fee that's required.
Because we have cost in delivering that and providing for that. Okay.
Come
Yeah.
back with
Some language and,
a second reading.
Okay?
no, it'd be
Well, it'd be first reading of
First
the
reading.
new.
first reading of an
yeah.
amended one.
First reading,
It's Groundhog Day.
number 2.
All right, so
That's the first one.
that's the first one.
That
Now
was-
we're moving on.
that
to
was good
ordinance
input.
2018-002, parking of recreational equipment, introduction and first reading.
I move to introduce ordinance 2018-002, parking of recreational equipment.
support.
All right, so same issue here, that we didn't get the markups because we kind of lost them in between the planner and
no,
the
I-
attorney.
I can-
So I can give you the highlight of what's new here. In section 15356A is new. The verified owner of the recreational equipment shall also be the verified owner of the impacted single-family residential property. C is also new. In no case shall recreational equipment be parked within a public right-of-way or on a vacant property. And then the criteria under F, 1 through 5, are new criteria. You'll recall we had people coming before commission to get a waiver for the recreational equipment parked at their property, so we put together some criteria for you to consider for this ordinance. And that's it.
The beginning part, again, was making sure we were trying to link the owner of the recreational equipment to the owner. Now, we'll do the same thing with the language, turn it to the current lawful resident. But the point was not to turn properties into the rental grounds for somebody else's recreational equipment. We were trying to link it to the owner.
Okay, couple things. I had that one again. And item C, I know they can't park it on public right of way, but if they pull up with the vehicle still attached, that's always been allowed. Because sometimes, if they pull up to the curb with their vehicle attached to their truck, and some people load and unload from there, that was always allowed versus you disconnect from your truck and you leave the trailer in the street. Is that the intent of part of that? Or are you talking, you know, off, or are you talking up off
I know
the
that
curb?
there's the
You're trying to
exemption.
define what is parking.
Yeah, there's
Not
the
necessarily
exemption in a
storage.
different section for the 72 hours.
Yeah,
For
that's
loading and
in E.
unloading.
That's
think
in the
it's covered in
driveway,
that.
though. That was
Yeah, that's in the driveway.
Do we
E.
want to extend that exemption driveway or?
Because some people, again.
You're talking in front, parking in front of like somebody's house
Right.
while
Yeah.
it's
I've even
attached
done
to.
it, I mean,
That would
I've
be
got a
right.
truck,
That would
I
be
pulled
right.
up and
That would probably be reasonable.
Yeah,
loaded, but I don't, you know,
Especially if you don't have a driveway.
right.
yeah,
Well, and some of the long ones, it would be impossible to back up.
bingo.
Yeah.
No, I think that,
Yeah, that'd be a
we can
good-
change that. That
Okay.
was,
And the second part of that is on a vacant property. Now, here's the problem. I know some people that have separate lots. They have the house and then they have a separate lot,
okay.
which they could store on.
The intent here was to prevent vacant lots from becoming storage facilities.
Understand. So how do you,
So maybe an adjoining vacant lot owned by the same owner as the primary lot, we can probably play with that.
something to that effect?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let me think what else I
Isn't
had.
that covered by what you said before? The piece of equipment has to be owned by the
So-
legal,
So what if
Resident.
the, what if the lawful resident, right, you have your lot that is separate address than your residence, right? So then you can't be a lawful resident in both addresses, right?
Right.
but it also said the lawful, oh, I thought we had owner in there. But then you can come, that if the renter doesn't have use of the lot next to it, but the real owner does, it's kind of gets sticky there.
Right. Yeah, the goal was to prevent a vacant lot from becoming the housing
True. I understand that.
storage, yeah.
You know, but we have some real odd things in this town. We have lots where, yeah, we have lots where there's just a garage on it.
You shocked me with that.
Yeah, I know.
No, I do. I drove around and there's some peculiar
Instances, yes.
setups.
Um,
Setups would be.
okay, so then that has, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, I'm looking under F now. Recreation equipment shall be parked or stored no closer than 6 feet from any public sidewalk. Well, that's
So we
gonna
had the
be.
issue with some of the waivers for the recreational vehicles, that the bumper of the recreational vehicle actually extended over the sidewalk, or the,
Fifth wheel.
yeah, the fifth wheel,
The
the
fifth
bed
wheel
part
front.
on the top extended over.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're trying to keep back from the sidewalk so that we keep the safety
The
and the
airspace of the
clear,
sidewalk.
and the clear vision
So
for
they have
people
to
that are
be 6
backing
feet
out.
from the edge of the sidewalk? Or can they be up to the sidewalk as long as they're not over the sidewalk?
So you get into clear vision issues if you have it right up to the sidewalk, that a neighbor pulling out of their driveway becomes a safety
Well,
issue.
technically, you have almost a 3-foot, a couple-foot tongue on the front of most trailers, but I understand. And then you've got G there, carry a current license. Once you get a license for a RV now, they're permanent. You don't renew them every year. They're just a one-time
And that was in the existing
G.
ordinance.
Yeah, I'm just saying that rule has changed
You might want to clean
But
that up.
they-
as well.
because now
But if
they're
it's-
permanents. You have to make sure they have a permanent
Permanent,
valid
yeah.
license,
Yeah.
We would
yeah.
just say,
There's also talk about changing that again at the state level.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
they screwed themselves when they
Right,
did it.
so I would say, if it doesn't hurt us to
we can
leave that in.
Current valid,
license.
yeah.
No, that's right, because motorhomes don't have permanent licenses.
then we don't have to change it.
Mine
Change
comes
it. The law
close because it has historic, but
So we would just say a valid license.
So my other question is, were all the people that were issued these, that-
Exemptions or hardships?
yes, were they all notified about this meeting tonight that we were gonna discuss this? I thought we were gonna do that for them so that they had time to input.
they can come to the next reading.
Because we're going to have to do a first reading again.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just
Because of
asking
changes.
because I
They
know
want
we
them to be
said,
Notified for the.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
we did talk about, they came to the meeting, we told them we'd let them know, so, you know,
Because that's the excuse we gave them, that we were looking into
Yeah.
it and working on it, so I think we
want
owe
to
them
make
that.
sure that they have every opportunity to come and speak their piece.
How many were there? 6?
Yeah. Something like
So that wouldn't be not a big deal to make
Certainly less
contact
than
on
10.
6. Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Actually, there were 11 written up, but 6 showed up.
Right.
There's one other thing too. I know it says here, and I know the intent of this. It says in section B, recreational equipment parked or stored shall not have fixed connections to electricity, water, gas, sewer. Okay, so I understand all that because you don't want somebody permanent living there. But when a person has a unit in the driveway, they're going to have it plugged into their electricity because of their slides and everything else until they get it out of the driveway. So all I'm saying is I just want to make sure nobody's going to get fussy and say that unit's plugged in, even though it's only plugged in to keep their fridge going.
So can you put a time limit, like 48 hours?
You could put that
That
in
72
within
hour?
their 72 hours.
Yeah.
Well, it says fixed connection. Is
Fixed.
that-
Well,
Yes,
they're all,
Fixed is hardwired.
Hardwire.
well,
yes.
Yeah,
okay.
fixed is
I'm
hardwire.
talking about.
Okay, as long
The
as-
intent there was to run a hardwire and then live in the recreational unit.
Okay.
If you're just using your
Extension
cord.
Plug in.
Yeah, I don't think.
Okay, I just want to
that's
make
not
sure
what-
that that's not,
That's not what the intent was. here.
okay, that, just the clarification.
Any more on that one?
Good job.
Let's move on to driveways and front yard parking.
I moved to-
Ordinance 2018-003.
I move to introduce ordinance 2018-003 in regards to driveways and front yard parking.
Second that motion?
Okay. What were our changes?
So this is something that is the zoning ordinance, so this had a preliminary review as required by the planning commission. This is what they had already reviewed, is now being passed on to you for further consideration and review. So the changes in section 214, number 3, where it starts, off-street parking shall further be subject to the following. A and B are both new. And then the only other change here is in section 215A, the addition of parking strip, parking bay, or driveway. So it's not just delineating the parking lot, it's adding those other exceptions.
Would we have to make a change to the parking and the exemption that we mentioned in the winter, or is winter snow, or is that, would that be then handled just in the winter?
You know, should,
For a
is
snow
this
emergency.
the ordinance that should be amended to carry out that thought of allowing that 24 to
For off-
40?
Or do we leave that in with the snow?
Wouldn't you do it in both places?
You'd have to connect the two because
Right, so they're not
one's
contradicting.
prohibitive
Right.
and then the other's gonna say, okay.
Right, we don't want contradictions.
We'll figure a way to make
Yeah.
that happen.
We might have to use the word notwithstanding.
Okay.
And again, that, section 2, the same thing about the ownership thing again? In section 2 in the first page?
Ownership shall be,
Ownership shall be shown of all lots or parcels intended for use. Again, you gotta put that
Yeah,
variable in there.
the current lawful resident
Mhm.
language.
Anything else?
Parking strip, parking bay, parking strip. So a lot of, I notice there are people in town that don't have driveways, but park in their front yards. Basically, just 2 strips where the tires go. Do we need to specify some type of material or something, or not go that deep?
I believe it's in the ordinance, that it's asphalt or bituminous
Okay. It's not included in
concrete.
this.
I think it's.
But that's for construction and
It's in-
creation of that,
That's
not,
creating a new one, right?
not if someone created it over
If
the
you
years
create
of
a new one,
driving
You gotta
it.
pull up permits, you gotta
Some are created by
re-inspect
old
it.
wear and tear.
Right, that's my point.
Right, just wear and tear, right?
Because if she goes to write them up and they say, well, I've been parking there for 20 years, and here's
This is-
these 2
this is
dirt
my strip.
paths that I parked, you know. Well, it's not a strip, bay, driveway, whatever. I don't know. I'm just asking the question. I would think Susan's mind would be, if there's grass underneath your tires, you're parking in your front yard. But if it's not, then maybe it's something else. That's why I asked the question, so.
well, I know some
Do we have
people,
a definition of strip?
I
Well,
don't know that
That's my
offhand.
point. That's
This
my
one
point.
does say shall be constructed. I mean, so it's an affirmative
That's for
act.
new, not existing.
So maybe what we should distinguish that going forward, no new parking lot parking shall be constructed unless you get the permits and do all that stuff.
Well, that's already in there. That's already there.
Right, but what do we do for the existing
If you're going to
people?
apply for a new one, you have to.
You have to do it right.
permit, You have to get inspected, the whole bit, right? And it can't be more than 50%.
So your question is, what about the ones that are
that
already there?
exist.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
How do we determine what the parking strip is, I guess is the question, so.
Yeah, we got to, that's a good point.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that it on that one? Everybody good with that one? Okay. Moving on to Resolution 005-2018, Park and Rec Master Plan. Need a motion to approve.
I make a motion to adopt the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as presented to us.
Support.
Motion support.
So you had received the master plan, I think it was either the last meeting or the meeting before. There weren't really any changes that were significant that came out
Actually,
of.
it was October 12th.
Oh, that long time flies. There weren't really any significant changes. One thing that is a little bit different that I didn't know about and we found out after the fact is that the recreation, the Parks and Recreation plan actually is required to be approved by the city commission because you're the fiduciary for that part. So even though this is in essence going to be a chapter of our complete master plan, this portion still needs to be approved by city commission as the fiduciary. From the public hearing that we had, there were only a couple very minor changes, one being the section on Copterville Township Park to delete freighter watching as an amenity because that's not a park that's on the water and you can see the water from. I think there was one other very minor correction that was noted at the public hearing. Give me just a second here. For other state facilities, they wanted the St. Clair County Planning to add the St. Clair River. One of the boat launches is actually in Marine City, so they just wanted to clarify that we have one of those. So that was all that came out of the public hearing for any type of corrections for this portion of the master plan.
And we need this, this is,
For the
reason it was
grants.
brought to us for grant reasons why we need to do
Right,
it tonight,
because
correct?
another thing is that not only is there a deadline for grant applications, but there is also a deadline for getting the master plan submitted to the state, which that is March 1st.
Yeah, you have to do it. Good.
Yeah, so they, the planning commission is
How's
gonna be,
that?
the planning commission is gonna be moving forward with the master plan. I think there are just some minor modifications that they'll be doing and probably wrapping up with that in, I think, February or March, probably.
As soon as the county gets back with the changes.
Right. And we didn't really want to hold up this component, which in essence would hold up any type of
Right.
grant funding for any projects.
Lisa, you had a question?
I guess it wasn't good, but you've got a list of stuff in the back here. Find it again. All these, where did all these capital improvement projects come from?
That's for the master plan part. That is not,
This is Parks and Rec.
which page is that? I'm sorry.
7-45.
Dash 45. Let's see. I know that this is a lot of the stuff that the planning commission talked about. I don't necessarily know where all of these came from. Dave, for example, it's downtown Riverwalk construction, phase 2 and 3, nautical mile park expansion. I know we talked about the costs for some of these projects and things.
Yeah, and so when we presented that to the county said, keep in mind that what the master plan is a high-level, large visionary document. So you, even if you can't meet those needs, part of the reason to include them is to justify things like grants and other things and private, public-private partnerships and investments. So just because you can't currently meet those with your revenue, doesn't mean you should not include them. And so that's why when we brought, because we had a number of concerns about a number of things on the list, and he gave us all those reasons why we should keep those in there, because if you don't have these sort of things to target, and he said, what's the point of having a long-term, long-range, goal-setting document if you're not including some of those things?
And
So that was his response.
I think some of these were things that came out of like, the visioning
The visioning
sessions that we
sessions.
had.
And
Some
some of
were
your
past
grants,
projects.
I'm sorry, some of your grants, you have to link back to a goal that's in your master plan. So you want to, actually, you want those lists to be as long as possible.
Okay. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just wondering where some of the cost figures and stuff, because like they got a splash pad in here for 450, and I know most of them were only like 100, 100
Yeah, they should always be high.
Okay.
They're
All
all
right.
estimates.
Yeah.
I just wondered where that came from.
Most of the estimates on the new items came from the county,
it's like a wish
based
list.
on other municipalities that they have worked with.
Depends on
And
the size.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right, that's it.
You're not binding anything
Right.
here.
Yeah,
Right.
You're-
oh, I know.
You're creating a pot of wishes.
It was interesting to read that.
Anybody else on that? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hendrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson,
Yes.
Commissioner Turner,
Yes.
Mayor Vandembosh.
Yes.
Commissioner Avery,
Yes.
motion Carries.
Now we're moving on to the 2018-2019 budget schedule. If I get a motion to approve.
Move to approve the 2018-19 budget schedule as presented to us.
Support.
Motion and support. Any questions on it? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Moving on to the financial business disbursements, including payroll of $584,749.46.
Move to approve disbursements, including payroll, for $584,749.46.
Second that motion.
Motion and support. Questions and concerns? Yes, Lisa.
Just a question. I see we bought some insulated coveralls, and I don't have any problem, I know those guys need it. But it doesn't say how many, and it was $1,400, so I'm just curious as to an amount of how many we,
I will check the invoices and let you guys know.
because I think you could buy a lot of coveralls for that one.
That's contractual through
Yep.
the.
It is.
Oh, I know,
DPW,
they
think.
have to have them, I'm just curious as to how many.
We're not complaining. I had the
Yeah.
same question. And there's other things in here where there's no quantity shown.
Yes, yeah.
So you look and you say, why bother to read this if you can't really judge whether it's good or bad?
But we can always call Mary Ellen or Elaine for clarification.
Well-
Anytime.
I don't know if things changed or not, but it was by union contract
Yep.
before
Well-
that they supplied each person with
Yeah.
every 2 years or every other year or something like
We
that.
do boots and we do
Right.
everything
Yeah.
else, I was just curious to how many we purchased with that amount.
That's right. We're not questioning the use.
Right.
More than one.
I hope so, or they're off. like
4
gold.
cents.
Gold
I
plated.
think 4.
About 4 cents.
Divided by 100.
I will email you all and let you know how many.
Okay.
Just curious.
Anyone else? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Mayor Vanderbush.
Yes.
Commissioner Avery.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
No, and it's due to a TIFA item in there, that's my only reason. So that Mr. Moran knows, I know he didn't know.
Motion carries.
Moving on to preliminary financial reports. I need a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
I second that.
Any questions on the preliminary? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. City manager's report.
The Christmas decorations, as long as they can find time, should hopefully be, at least the process of taking them down started next week. Some of you may have noticed that there were piles of snow in the parking lots downtown. That's something normally they truck out of town. Unfortunately, they've been tied up on water breaks and an issue at the water plant. They did finally start trucking that out of town today, so I just want to let you know on that. Speaking of the water plant, there was an issue with the valve and the system to manipulate the valve at the water plant. Unfortunately, it's been an emergency situation that they're working on getting someone in to fix the problem. Initially, we were looking at a valve replacement and having divers come in and replace the valve, and that was going to be a tune of about $16,000. Working with the dive team and our engineering consultant, Tetra Tech, we found another option that we're going to try and start with first, which is about $2,500. Putting in, I think they said a worm screw or something like that to try and be able to adjust that. And then hopefully that will hold us until spring when we can get a diver in there to replace it, and it hopefully shouldn't be as much of a cost at that point because they'd be able to shut down the water from the river end. They are working on that. The issue that they have is that they have to operate the plant 24/7 because of flooding issues. So they have pumps that are going and they need to monitor those pumps. They don't have alarms on those pumps, so they have to have someone there all the time. So that's why it's an emergency situation, and we're moving forward trying to get that taken care of. hopefully we'll have that resolved either tomorrow or early next week, so we can go back to just operating the plant with 12-hour shift. The lights on the south bridge, I think the south lights, I'm not sure if you've noticed, they've been out. Apparently water has gotten into the conduit for the electricity there. That's something that they won't be able to get to until spring, because I think they're gonna have to get into the concrete to get to that conduit. So I wanted to let you know about that as well. I will not be at the meeting, our first meeting in February, so the next meeting I'll be at my conference for managers in Ann Arbor. Since our last meeting, I've attended TIFA, Historical, Fire Authority, and Trail Towns. And that's all I have.
Questions for the city manager?
I do.
Yes, Steve.
A couple meetings back, maybe even 3 meetings back, we had a citizen indicate that there was a conflict of interest in regards to Friends of City Hall, specifically in relationship to the potential lease question, and eventually we're going to have to look at that at a future meeting. But Mr. Davis, when I asked you about that, you'd indicated you'd give us some direction on there, not at that meeting, and we have yet to see that. Is that coming pretty quick?
I did get an opinion from him. I'm not sure if you just want to speak on that now, or if you want to deal with that when we have.
Not mean to put you on the spot, I just want to make sure that we had that information
Yeah, sure.
in advance of dealing with that issue. I just want to make sure it's coming.
Maybe
so-
it should be distributed, and then we can
Yeah.
cover it at the first meeting in February. It's a detailed opinion, the way,
Okay.
the format that we developed. Gives you the question, the facts, the question, the simple answer, and then the long answer.
I just want to make sure we had that.
Yep, it's all set.
So when we go to adjudicate that item,
It's all set.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for.
Anybody else have anything for the city manager?
Trail Towns, what's going on there?
So Trail Towns is a collaborative group of.
Oh,
a
I
lot
know
of-
what it is.
Oh, okay.
They're dusting it off?
No, actually, it's more so just kind of working and moving forward with the things that they have in their plan.
Okay.
One of the things that they did last year was they got signs for Trail Towns, the bodies of water. We have the one out at the beach.
Yeah, we
that-
were one of 2 pilot cities that were selected, so it was an exciting thing. Then it just disappeared.
Yeah, funding is one of the
Okay.
big hurdles dealing with things, so that was something, I guess, the easy pickings for the sign. They were able to get some good, I would say good quality signs. I think she got them for $20 each and dispersed them throughout the communities, and unfortunately, a lot of the communities stepped up to the plate and put the signs up themselves, so they didn't have to deal with any costs of installation.
Okay.
What their next thing is, I'm not sure at this point. It's more about meeting, talking, and collaborating about what's going on in each individual community and kind of feeding ideas off of each other. Ultimately, still, the plan is interconnection with water, biking, trails as much as possible, and every community is kind of striving to do that in any way possible, which we certainly are as well.
Okay. So it's still ongoing.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, it sounds like quite a few communities are looking to potentially explore the idea of doing a road diet, so going from like 4 lanes down to 3, and then with that, you would have a center turn lane, 2 lanes of traffic in either direction, and then bike path or bike space on the shoulders. Sounds like St. Clair is doing I think, engineering study to determine the feasibility of that. I believe Marysville is as well. Planning Commission, we've talked a little bit about that. We've had people that have come and asked about that, and I think we're going to maybe explore it with, I think, the county. But yeah, there's a lot going on.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I'm not sure that you can answer much on this, but can you give us any information on the ferry disaster?
The ferry
What-
disaster. I know.
Since it affects the city so much.
Yeah, I know Dave has been in contact with quite a few people about that. It's kind of become a bit of a political issue. I think he's going to address that during his comments.
Anything else for the city manager? Moving on to Commissioner Privilege. Mr. Avery, why don't you start us out?
Okay. I would like to mention that the Friends of City Hall are having a fundraising banquet party at the Perch Point Recreation Facility on the 27th. Looks like good time will be had by all. We have good ticket sales so far, so I think this should be good. And that's it. Save time.
Well, I think this is, everybody said when we started out, this is going to be a mild year. And a mild year means to me a lot of snow. So, and we're getting it. So everybody be careful, watch where you're walking. They were on the news the other day, we were talking about if they're covered with, if the sidewalk's covered with snow and there's ice underneath and you slip and fall, you're responsible to know you could be a problem under that snow. So, that's all.
To go along with what Commissioner Avery said, yes, Friends of City Hall is a wonderful fundraiser, but there's actually quite a bit going on. Chamber of Commerce recently had an event. I know the Lions Club is doing their 80s party coming up. I believe it's in February. Chamber of Commerce is having the llama races again. And there's another one that I'm forgetting, the Wild Game Dinner as well, also the Lions Club, and there's a number of other events out there. So people often ask or tell others that, not a whole lot going on in the winter, but it seems like I was looking at our calendar that just about every Saturday or Sunday you can get out and have a good time and also support civic organization. And a lot of these events are only in their first and second year, so it's a good thing. It's a good sign for a lot of the civic groups. That is generally a sign of groups that are growing and potentially looking for new members and things. So I would encourage anyone that is looking to be more active in the community or just looking to support one of the many civic groups that do a lot of great things in our community to kind of get out there and see what they can do to support them and maybe attend one of these events and just have a good time.
Okay, on both of those. The Wild Game Dinner is February 12th. And we're running low on tickets, but if anybody wants them, just hit a Lions member up or contact one of us. And then the 80s Dance You're Right, it's February 24th, same month. It's a Saturday. Posters just went out for that. That's a good time. We all went and did the 80s things last year. It was a lot of fun.
No mullets this year.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. And I'm going to go back on the snow, same thing with I just ask people, please do clean your sidewalks. There's a lot of people that, and I'm not talking people that have issues with that. I know some people struggle, but most of the ones that I see that aren't clean are people that are able-bodied and could clean it, or they have kids that could clean it. Please think about the postal people that have to deliver mail. I know I heard that one of them, poor gal, slipped like 3 times. They risk a lot of injury, and technically, if it's bad enough, they don't have to deliver the mail. But please try to clean the sidewalks, even with a small amount of snow, because they can't see the ice underneath. Neither can everybody else. I know we have a lot of lots that are either vacant or whatever. Even going down to Kmart, there's a lot of that that's still not being plowed, and we have a lot of people that still walk down to get their groceries and stuff. Even in the winter, they're going down through there. And for those that like to blow it out in the street, remember that's illegal to blow all your snow out into the street after the snow plows have come through. I know everybody gets mad because they clean out their driveway and then the snow plow comes through, but they can't gauge everybody's time on doing that. We all suffer with that. We all have to deal with that. We all have to clean out the residue. But just kind of think about some of the people that are walking and need to use those sidewalks, and please try to keep them clean. Thanks.
Mr. Turner.
Just a thought on if we decide to move forward with the Water Street parking stuff that we talked about tonight, the signage and map and that kind of thing, rather than paying an outside company $2,000, here's a thought. Why don't we approach, like, say, River Rec Teen Zone and say, hey guys, here's what we got in mind. Design a map for us. Design a logo for our signs.
Make it a project.
Make it a project for them. Come up with a dollar amount that we feel comfortable with, and guess where that money's gonna go? back into City Hall.
Or the
in
local
some- Not in
businesses,
some
yeah.
engineering pockets, you know?
Yeah,
So, just a thought. Anyway, that's it.
yeah, could make it a contest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do a contest, do
Like
something.
art.
Have it done local. And whatever we pay them will go back to City Hall.
I'd like to congratulate Grant Fields of Boy Scout Troop 296 in Marine City. He's achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, which is the highest rank you can in scouting, and it's very difficult to get. So it's pretty high achievement, I think. On to the ferry. Monday I talked to Dan Lauer and Representative Shane Hernandez in Lansing. Then they got me in contact with U.S. Rep. Paul Mitchell, and he actually called me, which I was kind of shocked. And they understood our issues, and Paul actually was going to get in contact with the U.S. Canadian ambassador and see if there's a way to help on funding, but they were still waiting to get some firm numbers from the ferry owner. And I had a long conversation with him that afternoon also, which with him, he's usually not long-winded, but it was a good conversation. And he explained different ways, avenues for funding that he's got going. And right now, it looked like the Canadians were going to step up, and he had some case law to back it. So we've all got our fingers crossed that, and they do have an expeditious system in play that they may be able to do and still put in yet this spring, be early spring, but there's an issue with the fish spawning. So they can't do construction after a certain point.
March 15th.
And so if they can get the one style causeway rebuilt, they feel that they could do it in that time frame yet. But they still have to get their permits done through their DEQ and their Corps, so. We'll advise as it goes on, so. Also talked with Paul Mitchell about flooding concerns for later on this season. We had a good group of our responders with Chief Slankster, Chief Westrick from St. Clair, and Joe Doan from Algonac, and Chief Rose from Clay, and we really got together, and we had a lot of preparations in case it got worse, the worst case scenario. We had East China at first because of their low proximity right now, and they also had some sewer mitigation going on, and I want to thank Mike because he was really on board, and he had direct contact with Blaine, their representative, and we had stuff that the city was willing to help them out with in case, because they had a huge issue with, they were treating the whole St. Clair River. They had 6 inches pouring in at one time. Mike and the rest of the DPWs are working together in a real positive way right now and communicating, which is a good thing. So maybe we can reduce some of the redundancies, so. And then also I want to thank everybody for coming to the town hall the other day. It was very nice to see so many people, and I did have a couple complaints why I didn't say more and why I didn't give more of my opinion. I wanted to hear everybody else's opinion. They let me talk up here every 2 weeks, and I think I wanted to hear what everybody else had to say. I think the idea of building a new city hall is way out of reach at this point in time. I don't know, we have no way of funding it, so, I mean, it has to be listed as a fix, but it's not a real fix, because that's just no way we can do it at this point in time. So I just want to, we are gonna come up with hopefully a new idea. And I'm hoping, I'd like to say 2 weeks, but with the city manager not gonna be here the first week of February. Hopefully we have a couple proposals for everybody to at least mull over and try and get some input to them. And to start another dialogue on either that or stay, and then we just have to make some decisions on that point, so.
When you say we, who are you talking?
I've been,
You and the city manager?
we've actually looked at different buildings, and we've had Mike look at different buildings as far as the maintenance part of it,
Yeah.
and the outdoor maintenance, and the quality, and I've even asked a few different questions on what's it gonna take to make a building.
The only reason I question that, Dave, is that's a huge, important issue. And a lot of people took the time to come out and
Mhm.
voice their opinions on it. And if it comes down to an ultimate decision by one or two people without giving good reasons,
But that's why we're
there's going to
bringing
be a lot of
just,
upset people.
well, that's all we're bringing is ideas to the table.
Okay.
We're not, there's no, it's just alternatives, different alternatives. It may, the board may say, we don't really want to do anything. We want them to stay at, make improvements to the Guy Center. Eventually, that could be one of the actual alternatives. And that's basically just enough to get us through some of our ADA and
I guess
fire
my-
issues.
My point is, before you just start dismissing things off the top of your head, for whatever reason, you better have good sound reason.
That's my
why.
personal
Okay,
opinion.
Okay.
And people ask me for my personal opinion. So that's where this is coming from.
Okay.
I just don't feel that we have the, and that's all, I don't feel, it's one, I'm only one vote on this.
And that's what commissioner privilege is for.
And
All right.
I just, in the time to make, I mean, that's a 3 to 5 year investment in time and money to get it done anyway, to do it right. You're not gonna build a new building in a year. It's gonna be a long-term solution. So, on that note,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on.
I would like to make a comment that was brought up by several of the people here, and that is ice on sidewalks, because we know we have sidewalk problems. There's no sense going into that right now, but sidewalks in some areas have sunk down below the grass and so on, and so as soon as it starts to get any thawing, you have layers of ice in there forming, and there's no way to get it off unless you were to go and try and pump it during the day with little tiny pumps. So the point is, there will be ice that the homeowner can't move. We have to be very careful and conscious of it. And of course, if snow gets on it, well, then that's the danger, that you don't see it, but that is there. And I remember when we were talking about the different subject totally now, back to the ferry sort of, when we were talking about the congestion in town with having the large tankers blocking the roads and so on, and there were plans to try and stage them somewhere else, and I believe I've heard that we were not able to do anything with that because that was federal road, federal rights or something that couldn't be violated. Well, they're violated now because they can't go across. So maybe that's part of the strategy.
Again, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.